So, the games event. A team event with 50 games and 8 badges each. Seems simple enough, right? Yeah, that's because it is. But I decided to take things a little further. I 100%ed the entire event, all 50 games, all 8 badges each. And now, I'm gonna rank them from worst to best. Keep in mind that this is my opinion, and if you disagree, feel free to tell me in the comments. For those of you who don't know, the 8 badges are split up into 2 categories, shards and silvers. The 5 shards are usually very simple, and they're normally just hidden around the main map or lobby of the game. The silvers are the interesting part. Each of the 3 silvers are obtained by finishing a certain quest, and these quests are almost always consequential. To completely finish a game, you would need to get all 5 shards and complete all 3 quests. This is almost always easier said than done, however. These tasks can range from simply playing the game for a few minutes to finishing an entirely new game mode made specifically for the event. Obviously, some games are bound to be better than others. So, here's my ranking of every single game in the game's event, from worst to best. Honestly, I went into this game expecting something at least decent because I knew the game was pretty well made. What it turned out to be was a long, tedious, repetitive hunt that basically required a private server and 2 other accounts at least. In fact, one of the shards is so RNG dependent that I'm AFKing for it to appear while writing the script. But we'll get back to that. The quests are bad at best. The first one needs you to deal 100 damage to the shark in a single round using a water pistol. Not too bad if you know how to play the game, but I had to join a private server with a friend of mine to cheese this quest. The second one requires you to shoot down another player's boat using the same bow. See what I mean with the private servers? This also requires a 3rd account to get the shark while the other 2 take turns to kill each other's boat, which is tedious to say the least. The 3rd quest actually isn't that bad, but only 2 of the minigames spawn per round, so you have to hope you don't get the shark and hope the minigames you need actually spawn. With the shards, 3 of them are relatively simple, just being hidden around the map. The 4th is literally tied to the shark, which means more private server. The 5th shard is the worst one, requiring you to get a specific special game mode that is completely RNG dependent, and hope people vote for it, and not get the shark roll. I speak from experience. Afterwards, the shard is basically free. Why? I don't know. They just want you to play the game longer? That feels like it might become a trend. This game isn't bad in concept, but I don't know if my internet sucked or if I just suck, but this game is infuriating to play. The shards, like most games you'll see, require little to no effort, just scattered around the lobby and the soccer field. But the quests? Actually, they seem very simple too, only needing 7 passes, 3 tackles, and 3 goals to finish. And it seems easy on the surface, but this game is fast and requires quick movement between players, which is difficult because Roblox will usually slightly fall behind, causing players to look about half a second behind where they actually are. This makes the actual playing part really annoying because you have to basically guess where people are going to move if you want to tackle, pass, or really do anything in this game. And also with the fun added bonus of getting tackled or blocked by other people when they seem to be way too far away to be able to hit you. I don't know if I just suck though. How do I even rank this one when there's not much gameplay to begin with? Besides the shards, which for some reason were just given to me when I first joined the game, all you have to do is place top 3 in a bunch of different topics, which feels kinda difficult if you weren't using a private server. Of course, I opted to cheat with a friend, so all I had to do was play a few rounds, right? Well, the issue is that the topics required for the quests don't show up often, and since each game takes about 6 minutes, this meant about an hour and a half of AFK. So this one was a little tough to rank just because I didn't know how to rank it, whether I should base it off of the quests or the actual quote-unquote gameplay. But whatever, fashion games are boring anyway. What a mess of a game. This is the first one on the list which has real competitive aspects to its quest, and as you'll see later, that kinda sucks. All 3 of the quests need you to beat players in some way, them being to deal 500 damage, win 3 2v2 matches, and win 1 free-for-all match. Obviously, for new players, this is pretty tough, especially with there being tons of combos and tricks that only veterans would know about. The shards are kind of odd too. They randomly spawn in boxes around the map, so to get them you just need to run around, punch boxes, and get lucky. Also, this game is infested with bugs. I had to rejoin 4 times to finish this game, whether it was because there's a GUI stuck on my screen or the game wouldn't start and punching didn't even work. Bad in pretty much all aspects. This was the last game I did, and it's actually because I held off from doing it until I couldn't procrastinate anymore. This is one of the hardest quests in the event, and I genuinely don't get how they thought this was beginner friendly. First of all, most of the shards are easy enough, except for this stupid one where you just have to try and find the real one out of hundreds. The quests, they're bad. Each quest is a different boss fight, each one harder than the last. but even the first one is insane, if you don't know good combos or patterns. After a few attempts at the first boss and failing miserably, a friend had to give me tips on how to work around the game's really good AI, and after that I was able to beat all 3 bosses. And I know that it sounds kind of easy, but it really isn't. This one was more stressful and annoying than actually interesting. Of course, Blade Ball is in this event. This is one of 4 games that have been in all 3 events, and out of those 4, this one is the worst. Like the other 2 events of theirs, they are designed to make you play it for as long as possible, which feels like it would actually make the game seem worse to newcomers, but whatever. The quests are actually the easy part here, only needing a few kills and a few wins. The shards are the hard part. They randomly generate in maps every game, and they rarely spawn, so you'll have to play quite a bit to get these. What I did notice, however, is that the shards can only spawn once per map, so if you get a shard on the lava map, for example, it won't spawn there again. That was a little helpful, but this game still took me upwards of an hour to finish. This one was really weird and really annoying, but it was never really repetitive. The first 2 quests just had you play a game of volleyball and score 4 points. Even the points quest can be a little tough because there are so many controls, but eventually I got lucky and scored all the points I needed. The third quest literally required a second person to cooperate with you, because you had to hit someone in the face with a volleyball 3 times. Meaning, the other person had to stand still and you had to launch volleyballs at their face until it hit. The shards, though, well, they were even weirder. Basically, in this game you can change the map, which doesn't switch servers but makes it look different only for you. There is 1 shard each on the 3 maps, but they were oddly complicated. The first one had you find a door that you could go through to click a hidden button behind a statue to reveal the shard. Pretty complicated, but it gets worse. The next map just made you click a button on a desk in the middle of the room to open one of the doors that surrounded the walls. The third map had you, again, find a door you could walk through, then complete an obstacle course, which felt really weird with the floaty jump mechanics. The last 2 shards were simply on the default map. One of them had you hit a random flying UFO with volleyballs until it fell and revealed the shard, but the other one was just a fishing minigame. What is happening? The shard isn't even guaranteed to be caught. There are other fish too. I thought this was volleyball. Unfortunately, Super Golf did not do great on this one, which is surprising considering it's a really good game to begin with. The shards are the main issue here. The quests make you play 10 and 15 holes of the hockey and basketball game mode, and also get top 5 in any game, which feels a little out of place for an event made for beginners. The shards, however, basically require a tutorial. There's 1 shard hidden on 5 random maps out of the about 20 official maps, and you get no hints as to which maps they're in. The shards are also in really tough spots, and you have a timer, so if it times out, you'll have to wait until you can find another server that isn't full. It is also close to the hole with the shard. Luckily, there's a server list which could show what hole and map every server is on, so you can join the one you need. If that didn't exist, this would probably be the worst one in the event, because this isn't doable on private servers. Weirdly enough, this game has been in the main 2 of the 3 events, that being the hunt and this one, despite it looking like a pretty low-effort game. Its shards just randomly spawn around the field, which honestly is fine with me because I don't know how else you would hide shards in a single football field without it being annoying. The quests are almost identical to Super League Soccer's, and so is the gameplay, besides the sport being different, obviously. This one is just higher because it took way less time and it was less annoying, but they're both bad. Again, this was hard to place, just because the way I did it and how I figured stuff out was unconventional, to say the least. First of all, this quest would probably have been a lot lower if I didn't have a friend who had played the game since beta and was able to give me a ton of really strong dragons to use for the one annoying quest in the event, which was to kill 3 people in the arena. At first, I just tried to actually play the game and get strong so I could kill people, but then I realized, oh wait, private servers exist. But those cost 500 Robux, so I settled on joining a tiny server and killing a friend of mine over and over. I don't know why I didn't think of this earlier, honestly. The other quests and shards are irrelevant. In fact, one of the quests was to get all the shards, and all of this took me almost an hour. You might have noticed that these 2 games have practically the same name. If you played the event, you also might have noticed that the quests are very similar, the GUI is very similar, and basically everything is the same. That's actually because these games are made by the same development group called Infinity Sports, even though they only have 3 games in their group. Each game's quests were just to do things in their respective sport, like get assists, score goals, shoot 3-pointers, stuff like that. And their shards were hidden around each game's practice area. Because of that, I'm just going to merge the 2 games and call them the same. If I were to rank one higher, I would say Basketball Legends just because it took less time. This is yet another game that requires some sort of competitiveness. It would probably be lower on the list if I didn't get pretty lucky getting into a server just by myself, until some people joined and they were annoying because of course they were. I was also able to finish all the quests in one game, which are to score a goal, play a full game, and win a game. To be fair, half the game I spent alone trying to figure out how the controls worked, but once people joined I knew them well enough to stop them from scoring until the game ended. This one sucks, but at least it was easy for me. Oh wait, the shards. Yeah, they're completely irrelevant, they were super boring. Yet another football and soccer game, but this time we don't have to play the actual game for the event. The quests and shards are in the new area, which has a ranking system that you can level up by playing minigames, and the silvers are within the system. And this is definitely cool in concept if there weren't only 3 minigames and if leveling up wasn't as slow as it was. Basically, the fastest way to level up enough to get all the silver was to do the same 30-second minigame over and over again for about 20 minutes. I don't think I need to explain why this is so annoying. For the shards, they're hidden around the map as usual, but this time they have hints, which is cool, but the hints are not helpful at all. For example, one of the hints was this. You want to guess where it was? The auction house. A secret door which led to an indoor pool and an auction house. This makes no sense. This time, the game isn't football or soccer, it's motorcycling, and it's pretty tedious. Similar to Fashion Famous, the shards must have been broken and I was able to collect the same one multiple times, so I don't know how bad those were. The quests actually worked, and they were just to complete races. The first 2 are very mundane and are basically just touring the super empty map with the occasional city or gas station, and they took me about 15 minutes. The third one was way shorter and was along a track this time, but it was more a time trial than a race because you had to finish it in less than 110 seconds to get the badge, which was actually way tighter than I expected. After probably about 10 tries, I was able to finish the race in 109 seconds, which was really scary since I had gotten a run earlier where I was barely out of the time zone. I'm sure the race would have been much easier with a better motorcycle, but doing it with the default one was a pretty tough challenge. This one was just pretty basic. Despite the weird name, I was a little confused how a game like this got into the event considering it's not great quality, but compared to stuff like Blade Ball and Super League Soccer, they did pretty good. 2 of the quests were just to play the game for a bit, but the third quest required getting a party of 4 people to run a relay together, which was annoying since relays are randomly assigned if you don't have a party anyway, so it took a while to find people to care enough to join. The shards were pretty clever, being small objects you had to find and click on in the main lobby, but one of them was just hidden under a cone that you had to flip over, which is weird enough, but for some reason every time you join it spawns into a random cone, and there's like 50 cones. So other than that, this game is just kind of forgettable. Another running game. Seriously, this one was just really average. I can kind of understand why they would add it because running is sports themed, but they already have the one I just mentioned earlier, so I don't get why they felt the need to add one of these auto-clicker required games. Basically, the entire game is click, hold W for 2 minutes, hatch eggs, repeat. And this cycle is continued in the new event area, which is practically the same as the regular area, but with a different currency. The shards are simply hidden in the lobby, and all of the quests are easily obtainable as long as you just play the game for about 30 to 40 minutes. Just an unnecessary addition, but not inherently bad. Next. And here's the third running game in a row. Here's how it works. Run on treadmills to get faster, participate in the rounds, which are the pacer tests, to get faster, to do better, repeat. How do you make 3 quests out of this? Well, you don't actually, at least not well. Instead, the quests are to gain 10 speed, reach level 5 on the test, and to finish the test 3 times. So basically, just play the game. This one is really fast and easy, and it should have been fast if I hadn't accidentally rebirthed, yes, that's a thing, right as I was about to finish the final quest, meaning I had to do the whole process again. The only reason this is higher than Race Clicker is because it was faster, otherwise they're basically the same game. This one is good, maybe. Basically the main point of the game is to, well, eat the world, but really all you do is rip chunks of dirt out of the ground and eat that, so you're just like that one kid at your preschool who would sit in the corner of the playground and eat stuff they saw on the floor. Like most games, you're sent to a new event area, and all you have to do is do a race, hit targets with the chunks of dirt, and eat a ton of dirt. The race is quick, the targets are kind of tedious since you walk really slow and they just randomly spawn around the map, and eating the dirt is easy. If you couldn't tell already, we've reached the point in the list where the games aren't really bad, but they're just boring, and this is a great example. This is actually the only baseball game in the entire event, and also the game with the most confusing name. Besides that, they were actually pretty nice with their quests. 2 of them were in the practice lobby, which was single player, and the last quest, even though needing other people, was still almost purely based on your skill and not others. Although I will say the mechanic to aim the bat is a little janky, it was fine nonetheless. The shards, similar to Futbol Fusion, just spawn randomly around the field. Again, I can understand why, because there were no better spots, but it's a little basic. While being probably the best looking and biggest map out of any game on the list, its quests don't really hold up to the same standards. The game takes you through a huge Tokyo city while having you complete tasks like getting upgrades for your new car and finishing a race. While the quests are pretty basic, it was cool, despite most of it just being driving. The shards are not as cool. First of all, the 3rd shard will sometimes just not spawn. I had to join 4 different servers until I found it, and when I first realized it wasn't spawning, I thought I wouldn't be able to finish the event. The 4th shard absolutely requires a tutorial. It's in the upstairs of some random building in a weird alleyway, pretty far away from the main spawn, and there are hundreds of little places like that you can go into, so this would have taken hours without a guide. Definitely a well-made game, but maybe not suited for an event like this. Similar to what it did with its classic event, all 3 of the silvers are not obtained through quests, but through a leveling system, like what Ultimate Futbol did. Unfortunately, it also copied the bad parts of the classic event too. To get the silvers, you have to finish the same randomly generated race over and over for enough XP to level up. Despite it being randomized, it's still really simple and repetitive because the obstacles are less random and more just mixed up in the order, so it's not actually interesting after having to do it about 10 times. And as always, the shards are just scattered around the map. At least it's better than its classic quest where you had to do the same race for over an hour. On the mini ranking of games that were in all 3 events, this one lands in 3rd place. Not because it was bad, but actually because it was too easy. Since Adopt Me is clearly aimed towards kids, they made the quest extremely simple so that their main player base could understand as well. There's a portal in the main plaza which sends you to 3 minigames, all of which require basically 0 brain power, as you can see in the background. The quest felt very forced, like they made the new minigames then tried to put quests with it. However, they failed pretty badly, and it turned out to just be replaying the same 3 mindless games 4 times in a row. Like most of these games, the quests are consequential on this one, and the quests were to, in order, score 300 points in total on the minigames, get 240 points in one run, and get 265 points in one run. It's just the same thing over and over. The shards are also just hidden around the main area and some random buildings. It's definitely better than being too hard, but it could have definitely done better. Another game with questionable quality barely falls out of the top half. This one is just a normal simulator, but instead of the player becoming overpowered, it's the horse, and you get to take all the credit. The shards this time are instead shaped like sports things, like soccer balls or basketballs, and they're all in easy spots in the main lobby and event lobby. The quests are very simple as usual. All of them relate to playing either the main race or the new event race. I don't really have an issue with this game, but all you do is AFK on a treadmill and then do races. It was pretty quick, so it definitely wasn't bad, but it wasn't great either. Unexpectedly, this game was half decent enough to not fall in the bottom 10. Although, if I hadn't played this game for the hunt back in March, it probably would have been way lower. In fact, the only reason it's not in the top half is because of one shard. 4 of the 5 shards are all in the event area, but there's one shard that's hidden in a secret room in World 3 for some reason. It's a horrible spot for a shard, especially when all the other ones are easily accessible. Anyway, the silvers are found through the new event area. They can be done in any order, which is nice, but the final one is pretty tough. The first 2 are to complete an obby and to pull 10 swords out of the stones, which basically just means beat World 2. The last one is a boss fight with a suspiciously recognizable name. There's 4 tiers, and each one has more strength than the last, with tier 4 having 100 billion power, which is kind of ridiculous. Why this had to be in the event, I have no idea, but it was simple enough. Starting off the top half, we have probably the most generic game on this list. It wasn't bad, but it didn't bring anything new besides a really overpowered weapon that has no recoil, can one-shot, and has a melee option as well. Besides that, the shards are in really weird places because 2 of them are actually in the menu for some reason. The quests just need you to get 30 trophies, which are dropped by killing people, and then using that OP weapon a bunch to get about 40 more kills. Me and a friend did this on a private server because I suck at shooter games, and it took quite a while. Nothing much to say here. Again, it's really just a nothing burger. Following the trend of some of the worst games on this list, we have another one that pretty much requires other people. There are only 2 maps of interest for the event, Happy Neighborhood and Subway. Along with the lobby having one, each of these maps have 2 shards as well. For the first two quests, these are both doable on the easier of the two maps, Happy Neighborhood. First, you need to revive 10 players with someone else and escape 3 times with a friend. Reviving can be annoying, but it's usually not too hard to wait until the killer leaves. Escaping is really easy since there's a spot on a tree that was hidden from almost every angle and it was right next to the exit. The third quest was really cool, but pretty hard. There were a bunch of batteries that you had to plug into 5 different outlets around the subway map. Once finished, the broken down subway would open into an exit, which you had to escape from. After a few tries, I was able to get it. The quests are definitely good, but requiring a friend is a little irritating. Arm Wrestle Simulator really shouldn't have gotten this high, but I feel like I have to place it here. It was actually originally a few spots higher until I moved it down. Unlike most people expected, this game didn't need prior experience to complete the quests. It was a new area that took you through a few different places like a town, a farm, and a city to give you the silvers. There's a different currency than the main game, and there's almost no grinding necessary. The shards are just hidden in the areas you had to travel through, and none of them were excessively difficult. Definitely not the most well-made part of the event, but for their standards, they did pretty good with the gameplay and length of their quest. And for number 2 of our mini ranking of the games in all 3 events, we have Dress to Impress. Following its own trend, its part of the event had almost no correlation to the actual game, just like it did with the classic. In fact, the only part where you actually have to play the game is the first quest, where you have to score top 4 with a duo. The shines are just around the lobby as usual, but the next 2 parts were weird. The quest here had you completed Obby and then a race and get top 3 in both. It's so random, but it's not really bad, it's just confusing. At least it was easy. This one was also hard to place. Its quests aren't very good, and the game itself isn't very good either, but it was just really quick. All you really have to do is reach World 3, and everything else will be done along the way. The quests are displayed as consequential, but you can make progress on a quest before you unlock it. The only tedious part of this game was getting 300 of the new currency to hatch the new event eggs, which you could only obtain by walking around the center of the map where they've spawned very slowly. The shards for this game are in the form of little red cubes that are hidden around the first 3 worlds. Definitely not well made, but really simple and easy. Out of the 2 horse games, this one is considerably better in terms of quality and its event. The shards were all near spawn and really simple to collect, but I heard that they actually randomly spawned and I just got really lucky. I can't know any of this for sure, but if that is true, I'm glad I didn't have to wander around the map for 30 minutes. The first 2 quests were probably just trying to teach you how to play the game. The first quest had you catch a horse, and the second had you level it up once. Both of these combined are basically free, but the third one had you wait for a race to begin, which required 3 people. After enough people enter the race, you don't have to get any certain spot, you just have to complete it, which is a huge improvement from games like Midnight Racing or Pacer Test. A really well-made game with the quick, simple quest. They were so close to a great game. The 3 quests introduced new game modes that could be easily won, even if you were a beginner, and the shards were all in easy, clever locations. Except for one. This shard, unlike any of the other shards, wasn't actually in the main lobby, or the event lobby, but actually in a completely different area. There are multiple gyms in this game, unlocked by grinding and getting stronger. This shard was in the second gym, which, don't get me wrong, it could definitely be worse, but it's weird that they chose to put it here. There were plenty of other spots they could have put it, but they chose to make you grind for about 20 minutes. It's definitely better than a lot of the other games, and that's why it's up here, but it's just so much missed potential. Pet Catchers was probably on par with some of the easiest quests in the event, but it definitely had a lot more effort put into it than some of the other ones. First of all the shards are either in World 1 or 2, and none of the quests need any prior experience in the main game. Each silver is obtained by meeting certain requirements in the minigames. They're all extremely easy, but they're not too easy to the point where you can just shut off your brain like Adopt Me. The last quest isn't the best because all you have to do is play some painting game over and over, but it's only a few times, so it's better than Ultimate Futbol. Despite how easy it is, it was consistently interesting and definitely better than a lot of the other games. Even though this game's concept is almost exactly the same as Driving Empire, its quest is way better than doing the same race 10 times. For this one, there were 5 obbies you had to complete for a silver, and each one had a shard hidden in it. They were definitely a little tough, but it was the sort of tough that a beginner can handle. Each obby took around 3 to 10 minutes, depending on how good you were, so obviously I did all of mine in 3 minutes because I'm just so good. There were 2 other quests, but they were just to complete some races. They were honestly so forgettable that I don't even remember what the exact requirements were. That's pretty much everything this game has to offer anyways. This would definitely have been lower if I didn't have a friend that got us through the quest way faster. All of them are related to 2v2s in some way. The first two basically depended on just playing enough games to find a team that you could beat easily, and farming kills and wins off of them. The third quest was definitely the worst, requiring 15 knife kills, or to get 5 kills in one game. This would have been way grindier than it was for us, but fortunately we got into a game with an AFK person on the enemy team. So we were able to get all the kills we needed in a single game and finish all the quests in about 30 minutes. The shards were easy enough, they simply spawned around the lobby in random maps. I usually don't like shards spawning on random maps, but since there are only 5 maps and they're all really small, it wasn't hard to check through them all. If I hadn't done this game for the hunt earlier and not gotten a powerful bike, this would have been much lower. The quests are very simple. All you have to do is finish some time trials, complete the new event world, and play some races. This is way easier with the hunt bike because with its high speed and airtime, you can jump over most of the stages and finish the time trials with over half the time to spare. The shards are also pretty simple, with the only problematic one being at the start of World 2, but even then, getting to World 2 takes less than 15 minutes even with the default bike. This game is actually pretty satisfying to roll and jump through, and due to that, it never really got boring or repetitive. I also found an infinite high glitch by accident. I don't know how that one got past the devs, but okay. Surprised to see a game like Slap Battles in a sports and summer-themed event. Anyway, this is a very simple game. The shards are in really good spots, but the quests require you to play a soccer-themed game, where your objective is to score and hit people, which has the issue of player lag. This feels similar to a certain game, but it definitely wasn't as bad as that. First of all, the player lag issue was fixed by just simply making the range a lot higher with your glove, making it a lot easier to hit other players while still making it fair for other people to hit you from far away. Second of all, it was a lot more fun, because while Super League Soccer only really had walking, Slap Battles had a lot more movement and speed to it, which is much better. These didn't take too long, but I'm pretty sure I just got lucky with a good server, because a friend of mine struggled quite a bit here. This might have been better than I expected. I'm actually quite surprised. The new team game mode added a new twist to the main game, while still making it feel like it was, still the main game, which is something that Dress to Impress failed to do in their quest. The gameplay was surprisingly fun, besides the obnoxious slurping noises whenever you hit someone. No, I'm not joking. And also the people with overpowered weapons one-shotting you. The quests are very basic, just needing some kills in the 2 different game modes, and the shards are actually very well hidden. Good job, Tongue Battles. At least you're better than Blade Ball. Funky Friday has absolutely nothing relating to sports or anything similar, but it got it anyway, and it did pretty good at that. Although its quests are really basic, as 2 of its 3 quests relate to playing a bunch of random songs, the game is fun to play, and instead of choosing easy songs, it chose a surprisingly difficult one that just had a very low score threshold. I honestly think this is better, because it doesn't baby the player, but instead it shows them difficult songs that they can still win as long as they just spam the buttons. It introduces new players to the hard part of the game, and I think that's really cool. The shards, as usual, are just hidden around, and there's nothing much to say there. The one questionable part of this game is that the first quest is just an obby. It's like they ran out of random songs to make you play and instead built something completely random as some sort of filler. It's not bad, but they probably could have done better with a more interesting quest. Although its more popular counterpart, Funky Friday, got in this event, Roblox decided to add another rhythm game too, and it actually did better than its successor in my opinion. Their shards are all fun to find because they actually give you hints for each of them, and they're actually helpful too, unlike Ultimate Futbol. The quests are also good too. They give you a lot of freedom with what you actually want to try, because instead of a fixed objective, they give you a bunch of ways to obtain points, which can be used to buy the silvers. The tasks can range from finishing 3 songs for 50 points to beating a really hard song for 300 points. This is really nice for when you just don't really want to do a certain task, because you can literally just skip it and try another one. It gives a lot of choice that most other games don't really give, and it definitely deserves top 15 for that. Kicking off our top 10, we have one of the most popular games on the list. Already, this game had a big advantage over other games because it's just a good game. The shards were better than most, with 2 of them spawning in certain minigames and 3 of them being in the lobby. The quests were also fairly simple. The first one had you open up a secret arcade in the lobby and complete 3 games within it. The next 2 were to just play until you found sports equipment that spawned around minigames and to win team games. This one is extremely simple and basic, and it would have been lower if the game wasn't as fun as it is. Even though the team minigames quest is tedious, it's such an entertaining game that it never was repetitive. Nothing much to say besides good job at Pikmin games. Before I entered this game, I expected a low-effort cash grab game just because of the title, but it actually turned out to be really fun, especially with other people. There are 2 roles in each match, sheriff or criminal. As a criminal, you can walk around the map with a bunch of NPCs trying to blend in, but your main goal is to complete tasks around the map without the sheriffs noticing. Sheriffs walk around the map and try to pinpoint who's a real person. It's a pretty good game idea, even though it's definitely been done before, and it doesn't get boring after 10 minutes like most of these games do. Although the first 2 quests do take a while, it's made up for by the gameplay. The last quest is unique because it doesn't relate to the game at all. On a certain map, there's another path that opens up, and your goal is to walk along the entire path and turn on the lighthouse lamp at the end. It's pretty interesting, and at least it's better than other boring tasks like playing 5 games. The shards again are basic, but because as usual, they just simply spawn around the map, nothing much to say there. But this was one of the few games that was consistently fun to play, and for that, it definitely deserves top 10. This was undoubtedly one of the weirdest choices for the event, but I'm glad I got it anyways. For those of you who don't know, in Horrific Housing, each player spawns with an island and a house, and random things happen every few seconds. Your only goal is to survive. It's a great concept and works well with an event like this because it requires skill, but most of the time, you're never actually fighting other players, you're only trying to outlive them. The shards were well placed, with none of them being RNG based, and they're all easily found through the lobby and in-game. The quests were good as well. 2 of them were just to survive random events, and the last one was to get a win on a certain game mode. Normally this would be really bad, as games have anywhere from 6 to 10 players, and being first is pretty luck-based a lot of the time. Luckily, this specific game mode is a team game mode, so as long as your team wins, you all win. And even if you lose, this game mode is picked pretty much every time, so you can really easily get a second chance. Surprisingly, I was able to get all 3 of these quests done in a single game, which is pretty rare. A combination of a fun game and a fair quest make for a really good addition to the event. B-Swarm is one of the most popular games on the list, and for good reason. All of the shards were in easy spots, and none of them required you to play the game to unlock more areas like Gym League and Pull a Sword did. The quests were very beginner-friendly too. The main gimmick was to hit golf balls into holes that were in some of the fields. The golf balls could be hit if you pollinated enough flowers near it, and the hitting mechanic was pretty well made as well. The quests also had some other tasks on the side, like to get 1,000 pollen or discover 3 bees, but the golf ball mechanic was good for veterans who had good stats, so they couldn't easily rush through all the quests. The event was quick and easy, and it taught beginners enough to learn about the game without stretching it out way too much like Blade Ball did. Well-rounded and well-made quest. I have a little bit of bias with this choice here. I've already played this game a lot before it was in the event, so I knew enough about the game to easily finish the quests and locate the shards. Speaking of, the shards were mostly in good spots. 4 of the 5 were in the 2 areas you unlocked by default, which are Port Jackson and Monsters Burrow. The 5th was in the second area, which required level 10. But reaching that doesn't really take that long. The quests were also well made and were designed really well in teaching beginners about all the things you could do. The first was a simple fishing competition against some NPCs. Even with the default rod and no upgrades, as long as you're able to successfully catch the fish, you'll win pretty easily. The second quest taught you about hunting. There's a section of the ocean you could travel to which had giant trout that you had to kill. In total, you needed 20 trout fins, which is really easy and should only really take a few minutes. The third one was a really long race. Unfortunately, this was a multiplayer race, which means you had to wait for someone else to start it. Me and a few other people were talking about this in their Discord server when eventually the owner of the game actually responded. They told us that originally the race would have been shorter, but Roblox asked them to make it longer. They also said that there's a specified time frame regarding to how long the event should have been, but it was more of a suggestion than a requirement. Thanks to him for the info, and also for making a good game. So this game is surprisingly well made. The map is really fun to run around in, and the quests are really all well designed. The first is to collect 1,000 power orbs, which are basically this game's form of Mario coins, and can easily be done while hunting for shards. The second is to get a gold medal on any time trial. It's hard, but as long as you don't mess up, it's pretty simple. The third is to win against an NPC in the Ninja Turtles race. Why Ninja Turtles are in the event, I have no idea, but the race is fun and it's not too hard to win. The shards are challenging. The map is huge, and the shards could literally be anywhere. However, the devs did really well with their placements, and they're all somewhere near the main path. It's really satisfying to run around and look for shards, and the quests are good, but not tedious at all. Devs did really good with this one. This was originally going to be lower, but it turned out to be the only game in the event that I continued to play a little bit, even after I finished their quests. This game is oddly therapeutic in a way. It's calm and the music is nice and peaceful. It's a nice break from the overstimulation and constant movement that all the other games had. And the shards are all hidden in really clever locations throughout the game's various menus, and the quests are really fun too. They're very simple, just to merge fruits and play duels, but I did notice that one of the quests is actually removed and replaced. I'm pretty sure this is one of the only games in the entire event that actually removed part of the quest because the community didn't like it, which shows that the people who work on this game actually care about it, unlike some other devs. Even though it's just a Roblox clone of a different game, it's really well made and I think it deserves a spot this high. And now for the top 3 games. All of these were amazing to play and extremely well designed, but I can't leave it on a tie. In third place, we have Keys. Keys is a survival game similar to Survive the Killer, but better. Your objective is to pick up, well, keys, all around the game's many maps and use them to open doors, all while monsters are hunting for you. The doors can do anything from making you invisible to summoning a new monster to revealing the exit. Once the exit is found, all you need to do is get to the door and escape. For the shards, they spawn around the maps. Normally when games do this, they're RNG based and tedious, but this game guarantees spawns, so they're really easy to find and get. The quests are to open a bunch of doors, revive people, and escape a few times. There's also another quest, but it's really easy and doesn't really need to be a thing, so I'm going to skip over it. Reviving people is simple enough since you can pick them up, bring them to a safe space, and easily finish that quest. Opening doors and escaping is the main point of the game, so you'll be finishing these quickly as well. Overall, the game is just really fun to play, and the added challenge of needing to revive people helps to not get boring. A really well-made, fast-paced game gets its well-deserved spot in third place. And for our final entry on the mini ranking of games that have been in all 3 events, we have Arsenal. Like most people expected, this quest is absolutely amazing, just like its other 2 quests in the Hunt and the Classic. Many people actually argue that Arsenal had the best quest in all 3 events, and while I do agree with the first 2, there's another game that's even better. But we'll get back to that. Arsenal raised the standards even higher by making an entirely new roguelike game mode filled with a variety of enemies, 3 floors, upgrades, and a shop. Each floor has about 6 rooms, and after you clear them, you can get a free upgrade card, which can boost stats in certain ways like lowering recoil or reload speed. The shards are found at spawn in this game mode, and they're all easy enough to get. The gameplay itself is also great for beginners, and the quests work really well with it. The quests are to kill 20 enemies, beat all 3 floors, and to not purchase upgrades until floor 2. The free cards here don't count as upgrades, but instead refer to the shop that's available halfway through each floor. All of the quests are easy enough, with the last one providing a new challenge for people who are good at shooter games, even though floor 1 is pretty easy. The developers also made it easily replayable until the event ended, and the team with the best scores by the end can make a new item for the official game. The game mode itself is really fun to play through, even if you are good at games like this, and if you're a beginner, it's still fun to replay, since the only penalty for dying is restarting the floor, and you get to keep all the upgrades you had. Arsenal went completely above and beyond for this event, but there's one game that went even further. This game is a masterpiece, and I'm disappointed that it wasn't even in the most popular games. I came in expecting a decent zombie-related quest, and I got a whole tropical island with amazing design, a bunch of minigames, silly dialogue, an amazing soundtrack, and even a pirate-themed boss fight made only for this 10-day-long event. The shards are more mini-quests than hiding spots, and it makes them feel like you're actually doing something for them instead of aimlessly wandering around the map like most games. They each have their own bit of challenge to them, whether it's fighting through a horde of zombies in a lighthouse or doing parkour to get to a boat. The quests are perfect as well. Each one focuses on a different section of the island, and they're designed so that even if you're bad at it, you can still complete the quest given enough time. You can get points from the minigames you need to play, and instead of the quest being to get a certain amount of points in a single game, it's a certain amount of points in total, so even if you suck, at least you're still making progress. The first quest is a baseball minigame where you have to hit the balls into rings that give points. The second is a precision minigame where you have to shoot random objects as they bounce up into the air. Each of them are easy to learn and easy to play. The third quest is to deal damage to the boss, which is pirate ship themed. On the beach, the ship will shoot out barrels that release mini-Michaels, which are the silly little cats, and cannonballs. To damage the boss, you can hit the cannonballs back at the ship with the melee weapon. The boss, and really the entire island, is extremely well polished and well designed, not to mention the amazing music during the fight. This game took me about 30 minutes to finish, but it never even got a little bit repetitive or boring, because even when I had to replay something over and over again, it was just fun. This game seriously needs more attention, and I really hope it gets added to future events. Michael Zombies is the best game in this event. So, that was all 50 games in the event. By the end, I'd gotten in the top 5,000 out of 19 million people, which is definitely pretty good. Was it actually fun? Not really. Pretty much every game outside of the top 10 had boring copy and paste quests that didn't add anything new to the event besides more playtime. The event in its entirety wasn't very well handled either. In this new trilogy of 2024 events, we went from 100 badges in 2 weeks to 400 badges in 1 week. To actually 100% the event, you would need to play for pretty much at least 6 hours a day for the entire week. The leaderboards were horribly made as well. I won't go into much detail, but it's almost impossible to keep a top spot for the entire event with the quests they added midway through. The events in general have really just gotten worse and worse. If you couldn't already tell, I'm not old enough to have played all the events since 2016 like a lot of people have, and my only real experience with Roblox events have been these ones and the Ready Player 2 event a few years back. For what I've seen, however, I can notice one thing, and that's that Roblox has become less of a game platform and more of a company. The events have gone from egg hunts made by the Roblox developers to weird badge hunts made by people who probably couldn't care less as long as it makes them money. Like I said, it's hard for me to form my own opinion because of my lack of experience and age. But if we keep getting these weird corporate events every few months, then people will just stop caring. Even Theodoric, known for finishing pretty much every single Roblox event, has said that he has pretty much given up with these sort of events until something has changed. And honestly, I might agree. Something needs to be fixed, and clearly the developers aren't able to make a high-quality event like the egg hunts every 2 months. This stuff is getting stale, and even though I've only really played what most people say have been the worst of the worst, I think I might just stop caring about these unless there's a cool item or something. I don't really know what to say anymore. Good night, everyone. I'm going to bed.